Thanks for joining us. Thank everyone for joining for our webinar today, Leveraging Intelligent Automation. I'm Tracy Gardner, the Global Marketing Director of VLink Inc. and your host for today's webinar. Thanks for being here. I think you'll enjoy the next 30 minutes. It'll definitely go by fast, so hang on to your hat. This webinar is relevant to CIOs, CTOs, CMOs, operations, innovation leaders, and anyone else who wants to learn about how intelligent automation can benefit your company, especially if it's attempting to automate business processes via the use of advanced technologies. Joining us are our esteemed panelists. You can see Andy Duggal with VLink Inc. Andy is an automation expert who helped a Fortune 500 company save millions by developing an intelligent automation solution. And our special guest panelist is Thomas Helfrich, also known in the industry as the AI nerd. He is a top IA expert with extensive knowledge in advising, consulting, and implementing intelligent automation for companies like Eli Lilly, Gainwell Technologies, and Stanley Black & Decker. Thank you, Andy and Tom, for being members of our panel today.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
You're welcome. Before investing in intelligent automation, let's talk a little bit about what we'll learn in this webinar. I think people need to understand the state and future of the market. Automation technologies will definitely play a significant role in your business automation strategy, which could have a huge impact on the bottom line. But businesses make common and costly mistakes when deciding how, where, and what to automate. What you'll learn today in this short half hour is the common mistake every company makes in their intelligent automation journey and how to fix it. We'll also learn how a Fortune 500 company accomplished a 70% approximately savings with intelligent automation, and we'll look forward to the trends in 2023. So Tom, let's start with you. You're in the artificial intelligence and automation space. Let's briefly discuss how you've helped companies with their AI processes. Give us that 30,000-foot overview and talk about the common mistake that companies make when automating.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me on as a guest. Andy's got some great stories to come ahead here, but to set it up, I've helped companies in the consulting side, specifically a lot of the strategy assessment, technology selection, and kind of the business case process, and then first automations to set up their COE. So in the front end of setting up and scaling the intelligent automation programs, and what I've commonly seen as a reason why organizations of all sizes struggle to get intelligent automation off the ground is because of how they're leveraging technologies, and sometimes even some of the people that are involved in it are part of it. But how you're leveraging technologies to be correct at the right time, right size. Mm-hmm. So right person, right technology, right moment. Getting that right is usually the leading reason of why it's challenged, and I'd open it up to Andy too if he's seen the challenge of that kind of right technology, right moment, right timing is one of the things as well. I mean, Andy, are you seeing that as well as you've consulted and been out there in the IA world?
Yes, Tom. It is also critical that we put the pieces of puzzle together. RPA and AI, when combined, then it is called intelligent automation.
Yeah.
And
go ahead, Andy. I'm sorry.
And a lot of organizations have to understand the fact that you can leverage both of them to get better results.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that here in a few minutes. Tom, companies, as they consider this, let's just talk about getting grounded. What do you mean by that when you say that? Let's talk about that and how it applies to intelligent automation.
Well, getting grounded what the terminologies mean. So intelligent automation being a consortium or so, or the leveraging of multiple technologies to automate process. My personal point of view is the intelligent piece needs to be the human. The automation piece needs to be the technology. And then where this started years ago with robotic process automation has now moved into RPA plus intelligent character recognition or optical character recognition, to intelligent document processing, to workflow automation, process discovery. All that combined creates the intelligent automation story, if you will, or package that you'll need to automate process effectively. But in what I've seen be successful in the grounding of that is understanding it's still human led. Mm-hmm. And we can get into the details a bit more about, do you replace jobs or this? And the short answer is some roles go away, but it opens up the door to do higher value roles. So I don't think the actual overall opportunities, I think they increase instead of decrease. But that's what I mean by intelligent automation. It's not just RPA. It's not just AI. It's not all these other technologies. It's using them all together. Andy, are you, once again, I'll come back to you because you're really going to show some of these real world examples. Are you seeing that same kind of structure when you're with clients?
Yes, so there is a common misconception that automation is going to take away jobs. What automation is intended to do is to take away the mundane tasks, the repetitive tasks, so that that time can be allocated to a more productive task.
Yeah, and Andy, you're going to showcase that here in a few minutes for us in a use case. But I did want to ask, we talked about that human element, Tom. I saw, I think yesterday or the day before on the news, CVS is automating a lot of prescription filling. So it'll, like you said, the low level jobs, I think people do fear automation and the human element.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, if you look at any history of technology, it ends up making more jobs over time. As you've, look at from the horse to car and move on, right? From that. And there's no doubt of that it'll create more jobs. What it'll do though is replace things that should be automated that are very repetitive, things that take almost no thought. The things that still will create that will still require thought and an abstract opinion or some type of thinking or interactions with humans directly will still have a human element. Mm-hmm. And in organizations where you may say, hey, listen, I don't need 100 temp workers, or I've gotten rid of half of my back office staff. Well, what that does typically, and if we keep it in the grounding idea, is that frees up capital and investment to be placed into research and development, sales, to more customer experience initiatives. That's higher value. The customer in the end benefits, the employee benefits because they get upskilled. And a lot of the companies that we see really be successful don't just get rid of a bunch of people. They find the best people who are doing those roles and say, hey, would you like to do something new? And then you let attrition and other factors like that kind of reduce the headcounts in the areas, reduces your risk. It does that. So setting up your organization from day one, from getting grounded correctly of what your intent is, what technologies you'll leverage, how you'll go there, and what will be the messaging to your company so people don't fear the automation, they embrace it, is incredibly important from day one.
And how do you know when it's time for an upgrade? I think a lot of people on the call might want to know that. Like, how does a company know? How does one know? How does a CIO know when it's time to kind of roll that initiative out?
When to begin, right? So, Andy, I'm sure you'll agree. It was yesterday, but you shouldn't constantly be moving the furniture around, right? And so the idea that you should definitely be thinking automation first as you build your processes, was yesterday. Having a plan is a whole different story we can get into. But Andy, I mean, you have to agree. I cannot imagine you would say otherwise. That almost everyone you've met who's ready for it was probably ready for it 2 years ago, but didn't know how to do it.
Agreed.
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest pain points for the upgrade is though it's overwhelming. And so, Andy, when you've worked with some of the clients, have you seen that feeling of, well, which text do we use and who needs to run it? What kind of developer do I have to hire? What's the business case? These are the things that usually are the roadblock. But this is where, shameless plug for you guys, right? Like this is where you seek outside help to get you kicked off and get you down the road and get you so you can own, your own pieces of it. So
absolutely,
the time for an upgrade was yesterday.
Absolutely. And, we're hearing more and more about intelligent AI's role in intelligent automation. Both of you can speak to that. So one of you take it, artificial intelligence role in intelligent automation.
Yeah, and why don't you take that? So just lead with the AI. Where do you see the role being? I have my opinion on it, and as an AI nerd, I usually make humor with it. So I'll let you be the smart guy, and I'll be the guy that makes
the nerdy guy.
But how are you seeing it, or what's your perspective in real world delivery today?
So AI is the backbone of intelligent automation. If you have any documents that need to be scanned, if you want to do sentiment analysis, or if you want to do natural language processing, all of these would be leveraged using the cloud services of any of the vendors. It could be Microsoft, it could be AWS. So all of that is the backbone of intelligent automation.
Okay. Agreed, and I'll build on that. And I think using AI specifically, so go back to the original piece. I mean, don't change the slide, but going back to the initial notion of you need to use the right technology with the right human in the right moment. So my perspective of what I've seen really be effective is using, let's say, RPA to do things, and specifically taking the thinking out of RPA and moving it into an AI, let's say an inference engine. And there's only really a handful of companies out there that maybe do anything close to it. There's one I love. It's called Rainbird.ai. And I tell you about that because they truly create a decision space. Now, in the example we had talked about with one of the customers that I've worked with in the past, a direct example, they took about 2.5 weeks to build this one piece of automation in RPA. But and it was around making a decision. And the real idea is that they should have built it in this AI inference engine. So they did this as a prototype and they built it in 48 minutes. And then so when you can create the decisioning outside of RPA and you can put it into a decision space that has AI powered, so meaning AI can then look at all the data, it can infer what knows it doesn't know, and then ask a human to come in to help fill the gaps. It can then tell RPA what to go do. And in that role, there's very narrow, deep use cases for intelligent document processing, for character recognition, for, et cetera, et cetera. When you apply AI correctly in the right spot and then go tell RPA what to do, you've automated with incredible intelligence, because a human's part there to do some of the verification and gaps, if you will, like of knowledge gaps for the AI, so it doesn't infer the wrong thing. But then it's told it what to do, which makes your RPA be significantly more stable. You don't have to maintain it as much because it's just doing things. It's not making decisions in a business process that might change. You'll need less licenses. You'll need less people to go develop it. You'll leverage RPA so much better in that storyline if you do the upfront work, which takes less time than building an RPA first. So I think AI's role is critical into the intelligent automation play long term. Yeah.
What about the reality of it? The reality of this? I mean, it's here to stay. It's definitely, come, like you said, the time was yesterday. Talk about the reality of it.
I mean, the reality is that a few years ago, this wasn't even probably really considered. It was more of a buzzword. And today, if you're not starting your RPA journey or you're not rethinking it, so if you started it and you've seen it's gotten flat, you can't do complex processes, or your team's starting to swell and blow because there's too many people on it, you may want to look at the reality of that. You may need to take some of the logic of business functions out of RPA and move it into AI decision services, or move it into other functions that have much higher compute, much more power. So you can use RPA for what it was intended to do, which is to go do things, not so much to go do all the thinking for you. And I think that's the reality, is you have to every now and then look at what you have and say, is there something better we can use that really scales us forward faster, gives us more scale, less human interactions were needed, and automate that better. So I know, Andy, I know that's a little more complex, but and there's definitely use cases for just RPA, but from a bigger scale, more complexity, what's your take on that reality of AI in it?
So you have tools like process mining tools that can really help document the processes and help you scale up.
Well, yeah, great point. It mentioned that just the process mining itself, if you're leveraging those technologies, you're really moving the needle forward, because people are still involved to help kind of validate, right, on some of those, but you're getting every path of the process, and you can, pick the 80% one that most people do. So that's a great point of another technology that's leveraging human knowledge in the context of automation to automate it. So that's a great point for, also, by the way, getting around the stickiness of people not wanting to share information or not knowing, because that's all in their head. It's all on some sheet. But then when it takes away the errors and omissions from humans involved in documenting process.
For sure. And Andy, you will share a real world example here in a second, but I wanted to ask kind of Tom this one. Tom, you've consulted for companies for intelligent automation. We talked about CVS, we talked about Rainbird, talk about others, and some real world examples.
And mine was a CVS. So it's always been in a consulting fashion where you're doing the strategy and the assessment of process, identifying opportunities. And I've done this with Eli Lilly. I've done this with Stanley Black & Decker and Gainwell, and from that kind of consultative piece to get them set up for success. It's interesting, though. There's been tons of other ones, so to speak, over the last 7-8 years. But the big thing I was always missing was a known mission statement from the leadership that was sponsoring it, of what was the intent of the automation that was being shared internally. So some of the change management functions are often missed, and they should be addressed early. I've seen that when they've done this well, though, you've seen a reduction of the example of building something in 48 minutes that scales across multiple, business units, instead of doing it over 2 weeks and having to repeat it. I've seen reduction in invoice processing to reduce the back office team and free up tons of capital to go put towards customer experience. Also then, helping a company go from, let's say, few hundred instances of SAP down to a handful by leveraging RPA to do some of the data migration and data validation piece. That's a really nice use case too. And others are just regulatory. Some of the best ones across all those were just, how do you keep in regulation checks across your insurances or whatever else?
Sure.
RPA is fantastic for taking checklists of regulatory and documenting that it's correct, or at least sharing that information. So lots of stuff, lots of use cases. And almost every one, those are pretty simple examples. And almost everyone, they struggled until they leverage AI in front of it to do more complex.
Sure. And Andy, you're going to share a real world example about how you helped a Fortune 500 company save about 70% with automation, intelligent automation. Talk about you working on that case and what happened there.
So this was with the healthcare insurance organization. Every year there is a Medicare enrollment period between for 6 weeks. And there are different input channels that you would receive Medicare enrollment forms. It could be fax, it could be email, it could be regular mail. The organization was manually processing those forms, keying in that member information into the system. And every year they needed about 90 to 100 temp employees during the open enrollment period. Their pain point was this was a highly manual process. There were a lot of mistakes made. The files were lost. There were data entry errors, resulting in slowing down the process to enroll the member. And the caveat with this was the SLA was about 24 hours when especially a fax or an email was received to enroll that member. And if there were delays, there were fines and sanctions by the CMS, which is a regulatory agency. And these were hefty fines. What we did was we worked with the organization. We created an integrated solution that would create a repository, document management repository where all these documents would be housed. And we integrated it with the ICR OCR engine that would do the data extraction, and that would go ahead and complete those enrollment forms in the application and process those forms within the stipulated SLA. This helped us to meet the SLAs and at the same time avoid costly mistakes. The fallouts from that process were still being sent to human beings for to do them manually, but still we out of 100% we were able to reduce them down to 30% and resulting in 70% saving.
Okay, that's amazing. And I see here on the use case, it was 90 to 100 temps that would key those applications in. So that's basically what this did, was replace those people. So they didn't have to hire these people every quarter, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. So I know we have a number of participants in the webinar here. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. We'd love to hear from you because we definitely have time. We have a few minutes left that we can take question and answers from Tom and Andy. And as people get their questions keyed into the chat, I just wanted to ask you, Tom, real quickly, and Andy, both of you can contribute here. Let's talk about the trends that we might see in 2023 as we end the year here. I can't believe we're already in December.
Right. Okay, well, so I think some of the trends will continue to, I think a lot of companies in the mid-sized, smaller business will jump into intelligent automation as more technologies with cloud-enabled services that have a less expensive investment price point to start are out there now. And so I think you'll see a small, medium business be able to automate things as a service. I think that's going to definitely trend quite a bit. So coming down from the Fortune 1000 into maybe 10,000, the top 10,000 companies or even less are small. For sure, leveraging AI on the front of it. I also think you'll see some headcount reductions in RPA. I think those companies are going to shrink a bit and focus more on existing clients and get their technology not expanding ever and just really deliver on what's the promise. But I think you'll see a kind of mixture of those two things.
Andy, what do you think? From your
on
point of
the
view?
technology side of the house, it's turning upwards. We have more and more tools coming specific to businesses. For example, we have additional tools like text analytics for health. We have tools that can extract clinical data. Similarly, there are going to be additional tools are going to be coming in 2023 for industries to be industry specific.
Gotcha. We do have a question. And somebody has asked, to implement intelligent automation, are there standard models available, or does one need to invest in developing these?
Andy, why don't you take that one? You're in the front end of that right now.
So there are predefined models. Every provider will have their predefined model. For example, if you have to take data off an invoice, there are predefined models for that. But you can also go in and customize your own forms, create labels, and extract that data.
Okay, that's a good. Anything to add to that, Thomas?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. There's some turnkey. Now, most automations will have to be configured. To be fair, they're not going to literally just be out of the box and likely work. But there are a lot of organizations that have built pre-done, repetitive processes. Let's say for patient onboarding or adjudication or what have you on a regulation that gives you a massive starting. So almost like a marketplace where you can drag and drop in an automation file and then just customize it correctly. You should be using those for sure as well. And I think there's a couple technologies, and the names escape me right now, that literally they can even take some of your automations from other, so if you have competing automations and RPA, they can take one and move it over to the other. So if you switch, and I think that's an interesting way to port over technologies. If you're thinking of switching providers, there's some technologies that will do that as well.
Okay, we have someone who wants to ask a question. They've raised their hand. I'm going to allow them to talk. So let me implement that. And Jagdish Dalal, go ahead, Jag. You have a question?
Yeah, it's a great explanation of intelligent automation. I'm just kind of concerned as to where the future is with the so-called computerized automation or intelligent computers. And how does that affect the intelligent automation as you program it versus self-learning automation?
Good
Yeah, I mean, that's
question.
another AI role, right? For sure. So Jack, it's a great point. And I think that for computers, for machine to machine level automation, that's very ideal. You'll still need some model checks and health checks, etc., of that model, and some accountability and transparency and explainability of anything that's being automated on a decision services level. This is where humans will still factor in, and moving forward when it's an assistant to humans, I think that's a really good use case for that computer level automation that's happening. I think that's a great use case for AI. At the same time, that's very powerful, and it does need explainability, traceability. It needs all the pieces in there to be account for why it explains, so there's not bias built in and other things that would happen. I don't know if Andy, what your kind of take on that would be.
There are self-learning models as well. When you're training for any model, it can learn on its own as well, depending on you want to have supervised training or unsupervised training.
Okay. We do have another question. Someone has asked, what is the average time it takes in developing, customizing models and getting the real benefits out of intelligent automation systems?
You want that one, Andy?
What is the average time it takes in developing or customizing a model and getting real benefits out of the IA system? Like Andy, for instance, the one that you developed.
It depends how big your process is. But if it's just one application, a few forms, it could be 2 to 3 months. But if you're talking about multiple applications, getting data and different decisions to be made, it could go longer.
Okay. And Thomas, you spoke about the intelligent automation with Rainbird and said it was developed in like 48 minutes. How long did it take for them to start seeing results?
Well, Rainbird.ai, so it's not the sprinkler company, to be clear, but the Rainbird.ai is once it's implemented, I mean, you still have your proof of concept assessment phase. So, we're in like a, proof of concept 30 days, right? But to get in production, maybe 60, 90. This is an opportunity for anybody who's doing consulting. The average time is a loaded question. It really would be like, I would start that with a conversation of functional area complexity and stuff like that. So having an average time is, it's almost impossible to answer. And I think answering it would be irresponsible, because it would set a bar that might not be without any data, right? So I think part of that would be understanding what you're trying to do. You can build automations very quickly, but then the organization it might take 6 months for an organization to approve the
right.
technology. So I mean, like,
So
it's really hard to say,
fair.
like, right, if they're running off laptops, sure, they work
Timelines
immediately,
are
but is that
different.
what you want? So here's my thing is I would go to VLink.com.
Exactly.
VLinkinfo.com. I would fill out a form or just email Tracy directly.
Absolutely, which we'll tell you at the end how to do. Another question for you, Thomas. Based on your experience, why do companies have a harder time implementing IA, and how does a service provider help them, like VLink? A service provider like VLink help them?
Yeah, no doubt. So even if you've hired somebody, even if I was hired, let's say, to run an intelligent automation program, I'd have so much knowledge and experience. I would still want to leverage a partner that would represent hundreds or thousands of automations they've implemented, because the knowledge base of having that experience well beyond from not only a developer, from a strategy, from maybe even project management of it, is super important to get a perspective early stages. So that's like an early stage workshop, maybe a short assessment, and then a strategy road mapping component. And from most organizations, that's probably anywhere between a $10,000 and a $50,000 investment, depends on how big your organization is. And in almost every case, once you've moved to implementation or COE, a lot of times they just credit that back towards that overall piece, because you're moving forward. And I think you have to have, this is a tree you're planting. This is a digital workforce you're creating.
Oh.
You can't expect to just do it and it's fire and forget. It doesn't work that way.
But you have to water it.
Yeah, you got to water it and
it.
feed it. Usually trim some,
yeah.
ivy off of it. But you got to make sure that you're understanding that I would make it an upfront investment to go a little slower in the front, so you can go a lot faster on the back end with it. And that's what a really good partner will do for you, is they'll get you set up for success. And if they are ongoing consulting, advising you, they'll keep you from going off the rails of every shiny new technology object that's out there.
Absolutely. Are there enough skilled resources available in the market to implement intelligent automation systems, or is it a very niche subject?
Really good ones, yes, there's a shortage for sure. But you can leverage partners in this regard, where you should have a core. I do agree that you should have a core team, and that owns the long-term kind of complex new discovery, that they are part of your team that does that. Do light core and an expanded partner set with services, because you'll get a lot more scale and make the investment early. Then you'll get the benefits longer term by leveraging a partner who does have the resources and they have lots of experience. I wouldn't go hire 50 people. I would hire 5 and go leverage 30 that are really effective.
And I just have to say, VLink can certainly help with that. So
I
think we're out of time. You guys have been so great, Andy and Tom. Thanks for being such great panelists, and thank you all attendees in the webinar for asking such great questions. We're out of time. We hope to see you next time. We do have these every quarter, so please be on the lookout for more VLink webinars. If you know of anyone who might enjoy the webinar, we will definitely send out a recording of it. And we just are wishing you all a great day. Thank you again, Tom and Andy. Do you guys have any last remarks? And Andy, your email's up there, my email's up there. Tom, tell people how to get in touch with you if they're interested in continuing this conversation.
Yeah, I mean, you can go to instantly-relevant.com or hit me on LinkedIn, under Thomas AI Nerd Helfrich. Just the contact us will come to my calendar or to a calendar I'll be on. But I appreciate I've applied intelligent automation to what we do in marketing.
I was going to ask about that. So talk about that real quick.
It's just accelerating how you create content, how you drive engagement, how you drive lead generation and nurturing, leveraging human-led technology, not full automation, because it kind of kills your brand. Different conversation, but same principles can be applied. And I think the takeaway for the viewers and CIOs or COs or whatever is you can apply this everywhere. You just got to get out of your own, you got to kind of think out of the box of how I can leverage technology and apply it to all aspects of your organization.
Okay, great. So give your email one more time, or how to contact you.
Yeah, you can email my emails, the letter T and Thomas T at instantly-relevant.com. Send me an email.
Okay,
it will be.
And Andy, yours one more time.
Andy at VLinkinfo.com.
Okay. Thanks again, everybody. Everybody have a wonderful day. And thanks, Tom and Andy. Certainly appreciate it. And Arushi for helping us out behind the scenes. Thank you all.
Thank you. Cheers.
Take care. Cheers.